streaming live. And let's pick a song. Trying to find a song we haven't done. Anyway, we can do a song twice. All right. Adi Ade Murite Nayane Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gauranga Murite Hare, Puraka Sharir, Hare Hare, Murite Nayane, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Paravaticharya, also Teta, such as Shimad, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Chalananda Bhaktivedanta, Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Caitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Sai Mukunda Radhakunda, Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Ki Jai, Mathuram Ki Jai, Jagannath Swami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Srimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is to the assembled devotees, all glory is to the assembled devotees, all glory is to the assembled devotees, all glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Samaniti Namani, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharni, Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschachate Shatani. So, let me read the translation and then we'll go on to the Caitanya Bhagavat. So, okay, classes. When will that opportune moment come to me when I shiver upon chanting the name of Lord Gauranga? When will I cry while chanting Hare Krishna? When will I receive the causeless mercy of Lord Nityananda so that my desires for material enjoyment become insignificant? When will my mind be purified of material anxieties and desires, so that I can understand Vrindavana? When shall I be very eager to study the books left by the 6 Goswamis, so that I can understand the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna? The lotus feet of the 6 Goswamis are my only shelter. In constant separation from them, I remain. Narottama Das. So Narottama Das Thakur. So, we're going to go on to the Caitanya Bhagavat. We're reading from the 4th chapter of the Antya Lila of the Caitanya Bhagavat. We're almost finished with that chapter. And this portion of the chapter that we've been reading deals with the glorification of Advaitacharya. So, let us continue. Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, so Om Gana Timidanda Shagananjana Shlakaya Chakshurun Meditam Yena Tasmai Shigarvena Maha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So, let's share the screen. Here we go. And set up the windows. Okay, we're continuing with the 4th chapter. And we're on text 486, which means we're almost finished with the chapter. So, Advaitacharya has just been glorified, and his ontological position has been described. Ontological means who he is. He's Sarashiva, he's Mahavishnu, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So ignorant people who disagree with this fact cannot understand Advaita's glories and are therefore vanquished. I am unable to describe the unlimited varieties of new cloth that the Lord saw. The Lord was greatly pleased to see the arrangements, and he continually praised Advaitacharya. After seeing every one of the arrangements, the Lord returned to where the Sankirtan was being performed. As soon as the Lord came to the place of Sankirtan, all the devotees there became filled with ecstasy. Who can describe the way the devotees danced, sang, played instruments, and ran about in ecstasy? Everyone exclaimed, Jai, Jai, as they chanted the name of Hari. Nothing could be heard other than chant, Hari Bol. The bodies of all the Vaishnavas were decorated with sandalwood pulp, and their attractive chests were adorned with flower garlands. They were all intimate associates of the Lord. They danced and sang in the company of the Lord. The sound vibration of the ecstatic congregational chanting of the glories of the Lord purified the entire universe. Nityananda, who was like a wrestler and who was filled with the happiness of ecstatic love, danced wildly in the mood of a child. Advaitacharya was overwhelmed with ecstasy as he danced without stop. Thakur Haridas danced in many different ways, as everyone else danced joyfully. Eventually, Shri Gaura Sundara Mahaprabhu began dancing in unlimited ways. At first inducing all of his associates to dance, the Lord finally began dancing along with everyone. The devotees danced in groups, and Mahaprabhu Sri Sachinandana danced in the middle. After dancing and singing throughout the day, Mahaprabhu sat down with everyone. Advaitacharya then took permission from the Lord and went to make all the arrangements for eating. Mahaprabhu sat down in the middle to eat, and all the devotees sat around him. The Lord in the middle appeared as effulgent as millions of moons, and the devotees surrounding him resembled the stars. There were many varieties of divine rice, milk cakes, and vegetable preparations that Mother Sachi had cooked for the worship of Madhavendra Puri. So it's Madhavendra Puri's appearance day they're celebrating. As the Lord ate with all the devotees, he continually narrated the glories of Madhavendra Puri. The Lord said, if one honors the prasad that has been offered during the appearance festival of Sri Madhavendra Puri, he will attain the devotional service of Govinda. After joyfully finishing his meal in this way, the Lord washed his hands and mouth and sat down. Advaita then brought fragrant sandalwood pulp and beautiful garlands before the Lord. The Lord then first affectionately offered sandalwood pulp and a flower garland to Nityananda Swarup. Thereafter the Lord personally offered sandalwood pulp and a flower garland to each and every Vaishnava. When the devotees received these items from the hands of the Lord, their hearts became filled with ecstasy. I cannot describe how happy they all were as they loudly chanted the name of Hari. There was no end to Advaita's ecstasy, for the Lord of Vaikuntha was personally present in his house. How can a human being have the power to describe all these pastimes of the Supreme Lord? Even in millions of years, no one could describe the pastimes that Lord Chaitanya performed in one day. A bird cannot reach the end of the sky. It only flies as far as it is able. In the same way, there's no end to Lord Chaitanya's glories. One can describe them only as far as one is able. Whatever I describe is only by the direction of Sri Gaurachandra, just as a puppet dances only by the direction of the puppeteer. I do not know the proper sequence of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, yet I am somehow or other trying to glorify him. Let me offer my respectful obeisances at the feet of the Vaishnavas, so that they may not consider my offenses. Whoever hears these auspicious narrations will certainly attain the wealth of ecstatic love for Krishna, accepting Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu as my life and soul. I, Vrindavan Das, sing the glories of their lotus feet. Thus ends the English translation of the Gaudiya Bhasha of Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat Antya Khanda, Chapter 4, entitled Descriptions of Sri Achyutananda's Pastimes and the Worship of Sri Madhavendra. So Chapter 5 is entitled The Pastimes of Nityananda. Oh, this is going to be ecstatic. Many unusual pastimes in this chapter. Now, we want all of you to note down, not necessarily take notes, but note down any questions you have, because at the end of this particular session, we allow 10 minutes for questions, and not many devotees have been asking questions, which indicates maybe you're not listening. So let's start with the first verse. There's a lot of information in this chapter. All glories to Sri Gaurasundara, the spiritual master of everyone. All glories to the Supreme Lord, who like a desire tree fulfills the desires of his devotees. All glories to the best of sannyasis, the Lord of Vaikuntha. O Lord, please glance mercifully on the living entities. All glories to Gauranga. Along with his devotees, all glories to the ocean of mercy, who is full of compassion. O brothers, hear with attention the topics of Antya Khanda, wherein the pastimes of Sri Gaurasundara are described. After staying for a few days at the house of Advaita, the Lord went to the house of Srivas Pandit in Kumarahata. So remember, Srivas Pandit also has a house in Mayapur. But when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, he went to his original family house in Kumarahata. Srivas was sitting in meditation on Krishna when he suddenly saw the object of his meditation present before him. Seeing the Lord of his life, Srivas Pandit fell to the ground, offering obeisances. Pandit Thakura held the Lord's lotus feet to his chest and sighed deeply as he cried loudly. Gaurasundara embraced Srivas and soaked his body with tears of ecstatic love. By the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, Everyone in Srivasa's household was most pious. They all raised their arms and cried on seeing the Lord. On receiving the Lord of Vaikuntha in his house, Srivasa's happiness knew no bounds. He brought a fine seat on his head and offered it to the lotus-eyed Lord, who sat down on it. All the Lord's associates sat around him and continuously chanted the names of Krishna. The chaste ladies of the house vibrated auspicious sounds, which is called ulu, which sounds like gargling, and Srivasa's entire house became filled with ecstasy. When Acharya Purandara heard that the Lord had arrived at Srivas Pandit's house, he immediately came there. Upon seeing him, the Lord addressed him as Father. Then, in ecstatic love, the Lord embraced him. Acharya Purandara was most fortunate. He began to cry uncontrollably on seeing the Lord. At that moment, Vasudev Dutt and various other associates, headed by Shivananda Sen, arrived there. Vasudev Dutt was most dear to the Lord. By the Lord's mercy, he knew all the conclusive truths. Vasudev Dutt was the benefactor of the entire world. He was compassionate to all living entities, and he was intoxicated by the mellows of love for Lord Caitanya. Of course, Vasudev Dutt is famous for requesting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give him everyone's karma in this material world, to purify everyone and let him suffer so that everybody could go back to Godhead. Phew. And he is the personification of compassion. He was ready to suffer for everyone, not just his followers or people who served him, but he was willing to suffer for everyone, practically speaking, eternally. He would see only the good qualities of others and did not find faults in anyone. He had appropriate love and respect for the Supreme Lord and the Vaishnavas. When Sri Gaurasundara saw Vasudev Dutt, he embraced him and cried profusely. Vasudev Dutt grabbed the Lord's lotus feet and began to cry loudly. Who was not affected by the crying of Vasudev? Even persons with hearts as hard as dry wood or stone were moved to tears. Vasudev Dutt had such wonderful qualities that he could be compared only with himself. Sri Gaurasundara would repeatedly declare, "This body of mine belongs to Vasudev Dutt. Vasudev Dutt may sell me wherever he likes. This is a fact. No one should disbelieve this statement. One who is touched by air that has touched the body of Vasudev Dutt will always be protected by Krishna. Listen, O Vaishnavas, I tell you the truth. This body of mine belongs to Vasudev alone." When the Vaishnavas heard the Lord's merciful statements about Vasudev Dutt, they joyfully chanted the name of Hari. Gaurasundara knows how to increase the glories of the devotees. As the devotees glorify the Lord glorifies the devotees. In this way, Sri Gaurasundara joyfully stayed a few days in the house of Srivas. The two brothers, Srivasa and Ramai, glorified the Lord's qualities, and the Lord of Vaikuntha became overwhelmed with ecstasy as he danced. Srivasa and Ramai were most dear to Lord Chaitanya. There's no doubt that the two were as good as Lord Chaitanya's body. Wow. Srinivas, that's Srivasa again, pleased the Lord in various ways by performing Sankirtan, reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, and displaying proper etiquette. It was in his house that the Lord first revealed himself. One day, in a solitary place, the Lord asked Srivasa about his household affairs. This is an interesting story. The Lord asked, "I see that you do not go anywhere. How then do you maintain your family, and how will you maintain them? What do you do for a living?" basically he's asking. Srivasa replied, "O Lord, I tell you that I don't like to go anywhere." The Lord then said, "You have a large family. How will you maintain them all?" Srivasa said, "One will somehow or other receive whatever he is destined to receive," which is true. The Lord then said, "Then you should take sannyas." And Srivasa replied, "I cannot do that." Now, one interesting thing about him taking sannyas is that he is an incarnation of Narada Muni. And Narada Muni is eternally a sannyasi or brahmachari. Narada Muni just doesn't get married. Yet, in this particular incarnation, Narada Muni is married. His wife's name is Malini. and they had at least one child. So, phew, what's happening? The Lord said, you will not take sannyas and you will not go to anyone's store to beg alms. In other words, you're not going to take sannyas and you're not going to do anything to make a living. Because the grahastas are the STOM OCH. They're the stomach of society. In other words, they have to maintain the rest of society. ACH, sorry. So anyway, so they're the stomach of society. The sannyasis or the head, right? And brahmacharis are the legs. Oh my God. The feet, actually. So, but this... The grahastas are the stomach. They maintain the rest of society. So, the Lord is saying, you're not going to take sannyas and you're not going to go to anyone's, you're not going to do anything to make money. How then will you maintain your family? I do not understand what you're saying. Nowadays, if one does not go out and bring anything, nothing will come. True. Tell me, if nothing comes to your door, what will you do? Srivas clapped his hands 3 times and said, 1, 2, 3. This is the secret. The Lord said, what is the meaning of this 1, 2, 3? Why did you clap? Srivas replied, this is my firm conviction. If I do not receive food for 3 days, then I tell you the truth, I will tie a pot to my neck and drown myself in the Ganges. As soon as the son of Sachi heard Srivas's words, he roared loudly and stood up. The Lord said, what did you say, Pandit Srivas? You will starve for want of food? Even if Lakshmi has to beg, your household will not be afflicted by poverty. O Srivas, have you forgotten what I personally said in the Bhagavad Gita? Famous verse in the Bhagavad Gita. For those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. I personally carry on my head the needs of any person who thinks of me without deviation. All perfection will automatically come to one who thinks of me but does not go to anyone's door. Even though religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation automatically come to my servants, they do not look at them or accept them. My Sudarshan chakra always protects my devotees. Even during the final dissolution, they are not destroyed. I personally protect and maintain anyone who remembers even my servant. Wow. So if we just remember His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, we're always going to be protected and maintained. Wow. By Krishna directly. The servant of my servant is most dear to me. Such a person easily attains me without a doubt. How can my servant be in anxiety for food when I am there to maintain him in all respects? Oh, Srinivas, you just sit happily at home. Everything will come to your doorstep. My benediction to Advaita and you is that your bodies will never be affected by old age. Oh, I would like that benediction. Shri Gaurasundara then called Rama Pandit and said, "O Rama, listen to what I say. My order is that you must always serve your elder brother as if he were the Supreme Lord. O Brahma Pandit, you are as dear to me as my own life. You should never give up the service of Srivas." Hearing the Lord's words, Srivas and Shri Ram became unlimitedly happy and their desires were fulfilled. By the mercy of Lord Caitanya, everything comes to the door of Srivas even today. How can I describe the magnanimous characteristics of Srivas? The 3 worlds become purified simply by remembering him. Srinivas truly served Lord Caitanya, for Lord Caitanya enacted his pastimes in his house. In this way, by the desire of Srivas, Lord Gauranga happily stayed in the house of Srivas for a few days. Pandita Thakura and his family members all floated in the ocean of bliss as they constantly saw the Lord. After staying a few days at Srivas's house, the Lord went to Raghava's house in Panihati. While Sri Raghava Pandit was engaged in the worship of Krishna, Shri Gaurasundara came there before him. When Sri Raghava Pandit saw the Lord of his life, he fell to the ground and offered obeisances. Raghavananda cried in ecstasy as he firmly grabbed the Lord's lotus feet, which are cherished by Rama, the goddess of fortune. And the Lord then embraced Raghava Pandit and soaked his body with tears of ecstatic love. Wow. Raghava's body was filled with such ecstasy that he did not know what he should do. When the Lord of Vaikuntha saw Raghava's display of devotion, he glanced mercifully on Raghava. The Lord said, "After coming to Raghava's house and seeing Raghava, I've forgotten all my troubles. I have obtained the same satisfaction at Raghava's house as one gets by taking bath in the Ganges." The Lord smiled and said, "Listen, Raghava Pandit, go and quickly cook for Krishna." Sri Raghava was greatly pleased to receive the Lord's order, and he became absorbed in the mellows of ecstasy as he went to cook. It's described that the supreme goddess of fortune, that's Srimati Radharani, was cooking in the kitchen of Raghava Pandit. Following the dictates of his heart, that Brahmana cooked unlimited varieties of food. Mahaprabhu then came with Nityananda and other associates to eat. Gaura Chandra, the husband of Lakshmi, lavishly praised each of the vegetable preparations as he ate. "How wonderful is Raghava's cooking! I have never eaten shak like this before." Raghava knew that the Lord was fond of shak, so he had cooked various kinds of shak. After joyfully finishing his meal, the Lord washed his hands and mouth and sat down. As soon as Gadadhar Das heard that Sri Gaurasundara was at Raghava's house, he quickly came there. Gadadhar Das was extremely dear to the Lord. His body was filled with the happiness of devotional service. When the Lord saw the fortunate Gadadhar, he placed his lotus feet on his head. At that time, Purandara Pandit and Parameshwari Das, in whose deity Gaurachandra manifested himself, quickly came there. On seeing the Lord, they both cried in ecstasy. Raghunath Vaidya also came at that time. He was a great Vaishnava with unlimited good qualities. In this way, the Vaishnavas came from wherever they were to meet the Lord. The village of Panihati became filled with ecstasy, for Lord Gaurachandra was personally present there. Sri Gaurasundara spoke some confidential topics to Raghava Pandit in a solitary place. "O Raghava, I have something confidential to tell you. Nityananda is non-different from me. I tell you I do whatever Nityananda wants me to do. I tell you frankly that all my activities are performed through Nityananda. There's no difference between myself and Nityananda. Everyone in your house will come to know this. From Nityananda you will easily obtain that which is rarely obtained by the best of the mystic yogis. Therefore you should very carefully serve Nityananda, knowing him to be the Supreme Lord himself." Sri Gauranga then said to Makaradwaja Kara, "You should serve Raghava Nanda. Know for certain that your love for me will be shown by your love for Raghava Pandit." In this way, Lord Gauranga made the village of Panihati glorious by staying there for a few days. Thereafter, the Lord went to Baraha Nagara and stayed in the house of one most fortunate Brahmin. That Brahmin was expert in reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, so on seeing the Lord, he began to recite Srimad Bhagavatam. When Gaurachandra Narayan heard his recitation of verses glorifying devotional service, he became absorbed in ecstasy. Lord Gauranga repeatedly roared loudly, "Read on, read on." As that Brahmin recited, he became absorbed in ecstasy, and the Lord lost external consciousness as he danced. The Lord repeatedly fell with force to the ground as he heard those verses glorifying devotional service. The Lord manifests wonderful ecstatic love and then frightened everyone as he fell forcefully to the ground. In this way, the Lord, who is an ocean of transcendental qualities, danced for 9 hours that night while hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Thereafter, Sri Satchidananda regained external consciousness and happily embraced that Brahman. The Lord said, "I have never heard such a nice explanation of Srimad Bhagavatam from anyone. I therefore designate you as Bhagavat Acharya. Your only duty is to recite Srimad Bhagavatam. When everyone heard the suitable designation of the Lord gave that Brahmin, they all chanted the name of Hudi. In this way, the Lord stayed in the houses of various devotees as he passed through all the villages on the bank of the Ganges. The Lord fulfilled everyone's desires and then returned to Nilachal, Jagannath Puri. One who hears these pastimes of the Lord's return to Bengal will never suffer any distress. Throughout Nilachal the news spread, the crest jewel of sannyasis has returned. In great ecstasy, everyone exclaimed, Jaya Jaya, the moving Jagannath has come into Nilachal. When Sarvabhauma and the other associates of the Lord in Utkala heard the news, they immediately went to see the Lord. The devotees had been afflicted for many days with feelings of separation from the Lord. Now on seeing the Lord, they joyfully began kirtan. The Lord embraced everyone with great affection and soaked them with tears from his eyes. In this way, Sri Gaurasundara joyfully resided in Nilachal at the house of Kashi Mishra. People from all the provinces saw Gaurachandra become overwhelmed with ecstasy while constantly dancing and singing. Sometimes he would dance before Lord Jagannath in such ecstatic love that he showed no external consciousness. Sometimes Mahaprabhu danced at the house of Kashi Mishra, and sometimes he danced on the shore of the ocean. In this way, he constantly manifested ecstatic pastimes. He did not engage in any other activity for even a moment. When the concha was blown in the temple and the doors opened, he was there to greet Lord Jagannath. The ecstatic love he manifested while seeing Lord Jagannath was wonderful and indescribable. Tears flowed from his eyes like currents of the Ganges. The people of Utkala were amazed to see this, and as a result they did not feel any distress or lamentation. On whatever path Caitanya Mahaprabhu traveled, everyone would begin to chant the name of Hari. Soon Prataparudra came to know, that's King Prataparudra, the king of Orissa actually, and his capital was in Cuttack. Sri Gaurasundara has come to Nilachal. As soon as he heard this news, King Prataparudra left Cuttack and came to Jagannath Puri. Although the king had a great desire to see the Lord would not see him under any circumstance. The reason for that is that traditionally a sannyasi is forbidden to see someone who is like a king or a politician or anything like that. Of course, in preaching Krishna consciousness, we had to be willing to see or teach to, preach to, or associate with basically anyone. Although the king requested Sarvabhauma and others to arrange his meeting with the Lord, they would not do so out of fear. The king said, if you are all afraid, then at least arrange that he may see him without his knowledge. When all the devotees saw the king's intense eagerness to see the Lord, they all got together and made this plan. When the Lord dances in kirtan, by the arrangement of providence, he loses external consciousness. This story is also told in the Caitanya Charitamrita, that King Prataparudra, dressed as an ordinary person, caught the Lord when the Lord was fainting. The king is also a great devotee, so he can use that opportunity to see the Lord without the Lord's knowledge. After making this plan, they informed the king, who replied, somehow or other, I want to see him. One day, by the arrangement of providence, the king heard that the Lord was dancing and quickly came there. The king remained out of sight as he watched the Lord dance. He had never seen such a wonder before. Streams of tears incessantly flowed from the Lord's eyes, and his body manifested shivering, perspiring, hairs standing on end, and a loss of color at every moment. Whew. The Lord fell so forcefully to the ground that there was not a single person who was not frightened. The Lord roared so loudly that King Prataparudra had to cover his ears. Sometimes the Lord cried so intensely in separation that the king saw streams of tears flow from his eyes. In this way, the unlimited transformations of love that appeared and disappeared cannot be described. The Lord raised his two powerful arms and joyfully danced as he chanted, Hari Bol. After dancing for some time, in this way the Lord manifested external consciousness and sat down with his associates. The king then left unnoticed. His mind was filled with ecstasy from seeing the Lord's dancing. The king was unlimitedly satisfied after seeing the Lord's wonderful dancing and wonderful transformations of love. But in his mind there arose one doubt, which later became the cause of his achieving the Lord's mercy. When the Lord was continuously dancing, divine tears flowed from his eyes and saliva flowed from his mouth. And generally, saliva is considered extremely impure. We know when we join Krishna consciousness, the mouth is actually the dirtiest part of the body. In the ecstasy of kirtan, the Lord's entire body became covered with dust, saliva, and water from his nose. The king was unable to understand those transformations of ecstatic love for Krishna, so some doubt arose in his mind. The king did not reveal this to anyone, but returned to his residence in great satisfaction. The king was most happy to have seen the Lord. He returned home and went to sleep. Lord Jagannath personally appeared in this world in the form of a sannyasi to propagate the Sankirtan movement. Yet, by the influence of the Lord's illusory energy, the king did not know this confidential fact. Therefore, the Lord revealed this truth to the king. That night, the fortunate Prataparuja saw Lord Jagannath appear before him in a dream. The king saw that the body of Jagannath was covered with dust, and tears flowed from his two eyes like streams from the Ganges. Water continuously flowed from his two nostrils, and his body became soaked with saliva from his mouth. In that dream, the king thought, "What kind of pastime is this? I am unable to understand what Jagannath is doing." The king went to touch Jagannath's feet, but Jagannath said, this is a dream of course, "O king, this is not proper. Your body is smeared with fragrant camphor, musk, sandalwood paste, and kumkum, and see my body is covered with dust and saliva. Is it proper for you to touch me? When you went to see my dancing today, you felt repugnant on seeing my body covered with dust and saliva. Just see, my entire body is covered with that dust and saliva, and you are a king as well as the son of a king. Am I fit to be touched by you?" After speaking these words, the merciful Lord looked at his servant and smiled. So Lord Jagannath is revealing that he and Lord Caitanya are non-different, and that the Lord's body is completely transcendental, and certainly any of the whatever that comes out of the Lord's body is spiritual substance. And with our body, whatever comes out of our body, of course the body's material, is obnoxious. At that moment, the king saw Lord Caitanya sitting on the throne where Jagannath was previously sitting. His entire body was covered with dust in the same way as before. He smiled at the king and said, "This is not proper. Earlier today you felt aversion to me and went home, so why should you touch me now?" After bestowing mercy and Prataparuja in this way, Lord Gauranga smiled as he sat on the throne. Shortly thereafter, the king woke up and began to cry. "I'm a sinful, misbehaved, great offender. I did not know that Lord Caitanya was the Supreme Lord. What power does a living entity have to know him? Even personalities like Brahma are bewildered by his illusory energy. Therefore, O Lord, please forgive my offenses. Bestow mercy on me by accepting me as your servant." The king thus realized that Lord Jagannath and Lord Caitanya were non-different. He developed intense eagerness to see the Lord, but no one was able to arrange a meeting. By the arrangement of Providence, the Lord was one day sitting in a flower garden in the company of his associates. Prataparuja went there alone and fell flat at the lotus feet of the Lord. Crying, shivering, and hair standing on end continuously manifested on the body of the king. He then lost consciousness at that place. When the Lord saw symptoms of devotional service to Vishnu on the body of the king, he touched the king's body with his lotus hand and said, "Get up." By the touch of the Lord's lotus hand, the king regained consciousness. He then caught hold of the Lord's lotus feet and began to cry, save me, O ocean of mercy and Lord of all living entities. Please glance mercifully on this sinful person. Save me, O supremely independent ocean of mercy. Save me, Shri Krishna Caitanya, the friend of the poor. Save me, O beloved Lord of Lakshmi. You are worshipped by all the demigods. Save me, O you who are most affectionate to the devotees. Save me, O you who assume a form of pure goodness. Save me, O Murari, O inaugurator of the Sankirtan movement. Save me, O you whose glories, qualities, and names are not known to all. Save me, O most gentle Lord. Save me, O reservoir of all transcendental qualities. Save me, O Lord, whose lotus feet are worshipped by Brahma and Shiva. Save me, O ornament of the renounced order of life. Save me, Lord Gaura Sundar Mahaprabhu. Please bestow on me the mercy that you will never leave me. On hearing Maharaj Prataparuja's humble prayers, The Lord became pleased and bestowed his mercy on him. The Lord said, "May you attain devotional service of Krishna. May you not engage in anything other than the service of Krishna. Go and constantly engage in congregational glorification of Krishna, and you will be protected by Vishnu's Sudarshana chakra. I came here because of you, Sarvabhauma and Ramananda Roy. Just do one favor for me. Do not disclose my identity to anyone. If you disclose my identity to anyone, I will certainly leave this place and go elsewhere." After speaking these words, the Lord gave the king his own garland and sent him away in satisfaction. After offering repeated obeisances to the Lord, Maharaj Prataparudra left with the Lord's order on his head. The king's desire was fulfilled on seeing the Lord. After that, he always meditated on the lotus feet of Lord Caitanya. One who hears the narration of Maharaj Prataparudra's meeting with the Lord attains the treasure of ecstatic love. In this way, Sri Gaurasundara enjoyed pastimes of kirtan while residing in Nilachal. All the Lord's associates who appeared in Nilachal gradually recognized the Lord of their life. Sri Pradyumna Mishra was an ocean of ecstatic love for Krishna. Sri Gaurasundara personally gave him shelter at his lotus feet. The body of Paramananda Mahapatra Mahashaya was filled with the mellows of devotional service to Lord Caitanya. Kashi Mishra was greatly overwhelmed in the mellows of love of Krishna. For Krishna, the Lord personally stayed in his house. In this way, the Lord and all of his associates constantly enjoyed the pastimes of Sankirtan. All the renowned servants of Lord Caitanya gradually came and took up residence in Nilachal. Nityananda Prabhu was the most independent and effulgent. He wandered all over Nilachal. He was always intoxicated by the mellows of transcendental ecstasy. No one could understand his incomprehensible glories. He constantly chanted the name Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Even in his dreams, he would not speak anything else. Nitai's love for Lord Chaitanya was like the love and attachment Lakshman had for Ramchandra. By the mercy of Lord Nityananda, the entire world is now singing the glories of Lord Chaitanya. In this way, the two brothers, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nitai, lived at Nilachal. One day, Sri Gaurasundara, the Supreme Lord, in the form of a human being, sat down with Nityananda in a solitary place. The Lord said, "Listen, O magnanimous Nityananda, go quickly to Navadvip. I have personally promised to inundate the fools, the fallen, and the poor in the happiness of ecstatic love. If you remain silent like a Muni and renounce your magnanimous nature, then tell me who will deliver the fools and the wretched souls who have fallen into material life. You are the distributor of the mellows of devotional service. If you hide them, then what is the use of your incarnation in this world? Now, if you wish to fulfill my promise, then you should go to Bengal without delay. Deliver the foolish, wretched, fallen, and distressed persons by giving them devotional service." Having received the Lord's order, Nityananda Chandra immediately left for Gauda Desh, that's Bengal, with his associates. So we're going to end here, and hopefully some of you have some questions. We're going to stop sharing and then allow you all to unmute yourselves. All right, we have a question in the chat window. And if you really want to ask the question verbally, you got to go to the reaction heart at the bottom of the screen and raise your hand utilizing that methodology. But let's answer the question here. Srimad Bhagavatam 1:2-23 in the purport, it states we need to worship Lord Vishnu to get out of the cycle of repeated birth and death. If someone worships Lord Shiva, can he award the same benediction since there is only one Lord Shiva and his associates also exist after the annihilation of the material world? No. If one wants to get out of this material world, one has to worship Krishna or one of his various expansions. And you could worship Lord Shiva and just get material liberation if you're not interested in sense gratification, but you're not going to go back to home, back to Godhead, and you're not going to get free from the cycle of birth and death. If you actually worship Lord Shiva, you'll do what he says, which is Radhanam Sarvesham Vishnu Radhanam Param Tasmat Palataram Devi Tvidiyas Nam Samarchanam, which means you will worship Lord Vishnu and you will worship Lord Vishnu's devotees. In this particular, well, the question is Srivas and Srinivasacharya the same person? No. But Srinivasacharya was second generation from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But here, in this particular Chaitanya Bhagavat, Srivas is also called Srinivas, but Srinivasacharya is different than Srivas, who is being referred to as Srinivas. Okay? Hope that makes sense. So Srinivasacharya is second generation from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's not one of Lord Chaitanya's associates in terms of when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was performing his pastimes on this earth. But Srivas, who is Lord Chaitanya's associate, is sometimes called Srinivas too, but he's not called Srinivasacharya. That's a different person. Okay, so Sarva Siddhi, you have a question. Raise your hand.
Hare Krishna Gurudev, please accept my respectful obeisances.
Haribol.
Gurudev, on text 60 about the final dissolution where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, my devotees not be destroyed.
Yeah.
I was wondering, I got a bit confused because in the pralaya, as I understand, all the souls will go back to Mahavishnu. Is that I is that
Yeah,
yeah.
either souls go back to Mahavishnu, or they enter the Brahma Jyoti, or they go back to the spiritual world. One of the three.
Okay, okay. So what that meant is like the Vaishnavas will go back to him, but the others will follow a different
Yeah, the
path.
others will, if they're impersonalists and they're self-realized as impersonalists, they go to the Brahma Jyoti, and if they're just ordinary, just rascals, then they just enter into the Mahavishnu.
Oh, okay, okay. Very
Okay.
well. Hare Krishna.
Okay, and Ratna Gopi, you have a question. You can unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna Gurudev, grateful to hear this pastime from you.
Good.
My question is, you had mentioned that a person in the pastime was very willing to take on other people's karma, and I was wondering, why is it that somebody needs to kind of take the karma for us?
Um, they don't need to. We can just chant Hare Krishna. We can get rid of our past karma by chanting Hare Krishna. But his mood was that he was willing to take the austerity for the sake of others. He didn't actually take the karma for other people. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that's not going to happen. But also at the same time, when one accepts disciples, then one not exactly gets karma, but you get a reaction, which is like almost like karmic reaction, when the disciples don't follow strictly. Like Prabhupada sometimes would say that he was suffering health-wise because of his disciples' rascaldom. So, but basically, by chanting and being a devotee, then we don't have any karma. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Brajendra Kumar, you have a question. You can unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna Gurudev, please accept my obeisances. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
My question, Srivas Thakur, if I understand correctly, was not doing anything materially for his maintenance.
That's right.
But Krishna also said we have the right to do our duty.
Yes.
Right? Karmanya Vadka.
Yeah. Yes, that's a fact. You have a right to do your duty. Yeah, so basically, he was a special case, an exception. Because he's Narada Muni. If you try that, you and your family will starve and be put out in the street. I guarantee. All right?
So we should do our duty.
Do your duty, yeah, according to your Varna and Ashram.
Okay.
That's a householder's duty. You don't just expect Krishna to maintain you, unless you're willing just to live outside in the forest or something in America. And I don't think you can do that. Also, in those days, I mean, they were living in grass huts on the bank of the Ganges. They really didn't need to pay any electric bills or water and sewerage or health care or petrol for the cars or rental payments or anything. It was a lot easier to live like that. And then also Lord Chaitanya advised Srivas Thakur's brother, Ramai, to actually maintain Srivas Thakur. So Lord Chaitanya made a practical arrangement that Srivas Thakur's brother would do it. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
All right. And then we have a question in the chat window. Can you please elaborate how Vanaprastha are the hands in the example of ashrams being compared to body parts? Okay. Yes. Actually, not only the hands, this whole center section of the body, the hands here. So they're the heart. The heart means being absorbed in Krishna because the Vanaprasthas are in retired life. So really you say it's like the chest. The chest, which is, on the same level as the hands. And so the Vanaprasthas, they're learning how to use their hands in full-time service for Krishna because previously they were grahastas. 2. How do we understand Srivas' moods of not working in Lord Chaitanya, Lord sending everything? Bhagavad Gita ultimately ends, this is the same question. We need to perform our action. This is an exception. In other words, Srivas Thakur is an exception to the rule. There's always exceptions to the rule because, he's a pure devotee. And also he's serving the Vaishnavas, so his duty was actually serving the Vaishnavas. And by doing that duty, he was being maintained. That was the point. Just like we have Brahmins, someone who's a Brahmin engages in Brahminical work, he's not supposed to go work in the factory. Also, there is the principle that we should not accept service from the Lord. Yes, the Lord is ultimate. Well, Srivas didn't ask the Lord to serve him. He didn't say, Krishna, you're going to serve me, but Lord Chaitanya did it voluntarily. And actually, the Lord is serving all of us voluntarily. Nitya Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam, Eko Ohanam, Yovidadati Kamam, which means there are many eternal living entities, and there's one supreme eternal living entity, and he is maintaining the rest of the living entities. Yes, you're right. So far, there's no mention of Rath Yatra, which is interesting. Mention of Lord Jagannath, and no mention of Rath Yatra so far. So we find a lot more mention of Rath Yatra. And actually in the Caitanya Charitamrita we find that, and that's when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at the Gundicha temple gave his association to King Prataparudra, according to the Caitanya Charitamrita. So, time to end. Thank you all very much for asking questions. We will see everybody